And as we're looking, we're finding this debutage of jasper and chalcedony. We find this broken base of a point. So if we took this guy right here and we broke this chunk off, this is what we found, like a completely worked piece that somebody 1,000, 2,000 years ago, maybe even longer, was sitting there, working a piece of stone. It broke. They left it there and went on with their life. And we found that chunk. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. And you never know the history behind it. I think that's one of the coolest things too.
Yeah.
Is like, who's the last person that touched this and how long ago? I think that's kind of the fascination behind it.
We hunt for them. Like anywhere we go, anywhere we stop, if we're driving around the States and we're stopping at Airbnb, we always try to find a place where it's like, can we walk the grounds and find stuff? And I can tell you, we have been like 100% successful. All people have to do is just look down on the ground and some of these kind of, remote, maybe there's a cabin with 100 acres. I can guarantee you can find stuff very, very easily. We've found stuff.
I found stuff on the golf course here.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as the kind of like eastern farmlands in Missouri and Kansas, all that farmland gets turned up. And when it rains, the mud and kind of dirt settles and those stone points and debutage just kind of float to the top and people can just surface collect. You can dig, which is totally, you can take, a giant backhoe and scoop up dirt and put it on a shaker table and get all sorts of points. But some of the best points are in fields and then in creeks, because as rain and erosion, a lot of those projectile points wind up in creeks. They just kind of get eroded down, they tumble, and then you're in a creek. So you could creek walk for an entire creek with big banks and little cobbles along the edge and find all manner of projectile points, broken points, debutage. It's everywhere.
It's so badass. And just that part of history, you're picking up a part of history, like it's so fascinating. And then that connection, like thinking about, God, what did this thing do? I remember specifically going to, there's a little museum outside of Kalispell, and I got to ask, my uncle still is kind of up in that area. And I wonder if this is still on display. There was a human rib cage with an arrowhead stuck in it, like from the bison experiment.
Cool.
Maddie, maybe look this up and see if we can pinpoint where this at. But I thought that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, man.
So as a kid, I saw this. And then every time I picked one up, that's kind of what ran through my mind. I was like, I wonder if this killed a cowboy or a cavalry member or something like that. Yeah. It's pretty impressive. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that to kind of come full circle with it and how I treat modern day hunting with archery, that taught me a lot of like hunting setups and hunting positions and high ground and where you would find cover, because my grandfather being a bow hunter, he was like, want to know how I find so many arrowheads? I think like a hunter.
That's it.
Right? And they probably took a shot from here. There was good cover.
Yeah.
Maybe they were shooting down into a creek or, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, there was a culture that existed known as the Mount Albion culture, which was right along the Front Range. And what they would do is they used quartz, which isn't the most ideal. You can produce some points, but their points were relatively rudimentary. They never crossed over the mountains. They never really went into the eastern side. They just kind of hung along that Front Range. And you can go up there today and still see the horseshoe hunting blinds and these rock structures that are placed at these different intervals where they would hunt from with an atlatl, and you can go there, you can see it, and you can just see like, oh man, this totally makes sense. If the wind's blowing this way, I'm in this horseshoe, it's gonna, prevent some sort of observation by, a game animal. But you can kind of just put yourself in their kind of their landscape, if you were, that mindset, and see exactly where they would sit, why they would be sitting there. Intervisibility lines, like in hunting. You have a bend around the base of a mountain. You can't see what's around there. Something else might be able to scent you, and as it approaches, it might be able to see you. But like just using intervisibility lines and the masking of the terrain and the things that they built up in these little horseshoes they're still there, and it makes total sense why they are there and the purposes behind it.
Yeah, there's one specific spot where we hunted out in South Park.
Okay,
I think it's all private property at this point, so you couldn't get back out there. I should have just bought the place, honestly. I think you could buy it for like $500 an acre or something at one point when I was looking at it. But we found probably maybe 20 or 30 points. I don't know how many points. Like my family has been going there for years. I've owned part of it at one point, but it was just a saddle. So animals cross. I mean, they're opportunists, right? So they're going to take the least path of resistance, as long as there's no predatory stuff in there.
That's it.
But if you're a native with, a longbow and hiding in some brush, it's a great opportunity. So we found all kinds of stuff in there, knives and just all kinds of stuff.
It's not really hard to kind of strategize if you are going out to look for artifacts. And I think, first things first, it's not 100% illegal to take artifacts off of private land. If somebody owns it, you can. If it's like a national park or BLM, it's really best to just, take a photo, notify the appropriate people, whether it's, some sort of archaeology department or a department within there saying, all right, we found some artifacts, we left it in place. Here's a grid coordinate, that sort of thing. But there are plenty of places where you can go and collect, artifacts on private land. And I think when people are out hunting these things with intent, with purpose, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's going to sit there. I think where you just kind of need to strategize is saying, is this a significant sort of location, a significant find? Am I finding an ancient campsite that could be revealing of, cultural practices or, flint knapping sort of purposes like source stones and am I finding like more geo artifacts like, cooked bones? If, there's different aspects of artifacts that can be found on a site. So if you come across something before you start disturbing it, and you are on, public land, it's good to be like, all right, this could be something. Let's leave it. I wouldn't start posting it on social media because people will go out and, pilfer through it, but just notify the authorities. And you never know, that could be maybe not necessarily a missing link, but it could be something that proves that a culture or a people moved farther into a location, east, northeast, southwest, or that culture did something that maybe that connects them to another. I mean, there's so many different ways to connect those pieces, so it's best to kind of leave the stuff. But if you're on your land, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, we specifically one time think that we found like a burial ground.
There you go.
And we started finding like some ceremonial pieces, like almost like beads and like little sculptures of animals.
Yeah.
Out of like the same sort of chert and stuff that they made.
That makes sense.
And we totally just left it alone.
Smart.
Like, just like, just to respect. You don't want to be robbing somebody's grave, Like, we didn't find any human remains or anything, but it was just kind of like, okay, this is sacred ground. And you could almost feel it. Like, and it was crazy where it was at. There's like a 360-degree view. Like, it kind of made sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you start putting it all together, it's like.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, that's kind of the fun. Like, for me, I was never the biggest, arrowhead artifact hunter. I mean, once you make them, you're kind of going through that process. But I think the enjoyment is like when you do find something like that, or even when I find debutage, little flakes and pieces, it's just exciting because it's like I do the exact same thing. They did that thing possibly here or 10 yards away, and it's just kind of eroded down. So it's like, man, that's badass in my opinion. I enjoy that. And
I have a new love for it now after spending the day with you, this week. I think it's so cool because I'm so fascinated with it, but now I can actually, like, I've always admired the art form, I guess, because it truly is an art form, man. You are sculpting something, and I mean, like, these are amazing.
Yeah, they're hunting points.
And you just whip these up out of, like,
the flakes.
What was that, 2 days ago? We were recording, and then these are some of the flakes that I broke off the rock, and you turned it into, look at that.
I mean, it's got good symmetry. It's got, the vex side that gives you a little bit of a, if you look straight down the pipe, I mean, that's a cutter through and through. You could throw it on an atlatl. I'd probably put that one on an atlatl and that one on some sort of arrow, just a big old bow.